Nous nous sommes engagés auprès des démocrates américains, espérant avoir la victoire du positivisme, la victoire positive pour les États-Unis. Ce n'est pas ce qui est arrivé. C'est important pour nous aussi d'être capables de tirer les leçons de ça, d'essayer de construire à partir de là. Et je propose à Sandro Gozzi de bien vouloir me rejoindre et d'inviter M. Marshall pour nous donner aussi un éclairage des leçons que l'on peut tirer de cette situation. Merci Sandro.
Merci, ça fonctionne. Merci. Je suis vraiment très, très heureux de vous introduire Will Marshall, que beaucoup parmi vous, vous connaissez déjà parce qu'il a été un ami. Il a été avec les partis démocrates européens de sa fondation. Will Marshall, c'était l'homme clé dans la victoire de Bill Clinton. Il a fondé le Democratic Council Leadership. Il a fondé les New Democrats. Il a inspiré l'action politique d'un des plus grands présidents, selon moi, des États-Unis d'Amérique, Bill Clinton. Après, bon, on ne va pas s'aventurer là-dessus. Et il est un journaliste, il est un auteur. Pour nous, c'est un interlocuteur en tant que président des Progressive Policy Institute, que c'est un des grands think tanks démocrates de Washington. Et je veux les remercier parce que c'est un peu les témoins de notre volonté de tisser des liens très forts entre démocrates européens et démocrates américains. But, what did it happen?
C'était pas bon. Thank you very much, Sandro, for that and for this invitation to join the European Democrats and to see so many long-time friends. I'm not going to say old. Is that
closer, no, it's working back. Closer to your
closer to my mouth? Thank you. That's better. Well, again, thanks very much for this invitation to see longtime friends that I've enjoyed working with down the decades, really. As Sandro said, Progressive Policy Institute's a Washington think tank that began life as Bill Clinton's idea mill and was integrally involved in all that New Democrat reinvention back in the day. And we've long enjoyed a very fruitful engagement with European center parties and center-left parties down the years. And it's just delightful to have an opportunity to resume that, although not under the circumstances that we had hoped for. But to see Francesco Rutelli and François Bayrou and others that we've comrades in the long march to radical pragmatism is great. When I saw Sandro and when he invited me to join you to this great gathering, we were at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago this summer, and it was a moment of elation, high hopes. Kamala Harris had come out of the box roaring and was leading Donald Trump in the polls, and we began to believe again that this was a winnable election, that we could hold off Trump. It was not to be. We failed, and I think what I want to do is to bring this down to a very concrete problem that needs to be solved, a very concrete political problem that needs solving. And I think it's a common challenge. It's not just for us Democrats. I think it's the common challenge facing many center and center-left parties and movements in Europe. Because after all, we're all in the business of politics. We're all in the business of winning elections. Not just fighting for general theories of politics. We have to go out there and convince voters to do it. And we've been failing in the United States, and I would say there's difficulties in Europe as well. So I think we need to grapple with why that is the case. In this election, what came as a rude shock to Democrats was the sweep of Donald Trump's victory. The whole country moved to the right, a little, not a lot, but it moved enough to be a convincing victory for Donald Trump. And, you know, he made large gains in Democratic cities, in Democratic states, and most importantly, among Democratic voter groups that we thought were the sturdy pillar of our party's coalition. That is young voters, black voters, and Latino voters. And that is the most worrisome takeaway from this election and the problem that we have to solve. A lot of these voters are non-college voters. We call them working class voters because they don't have college degrees. And Trump, who had already securely nailed down the support of white working class voters, added the non-white working class voters to his column, or at least significant numbers of them in this election. That's terribly worrisome. And to me, the loss highlights the Democrats' strategic failure over the last 4 years under President Biden and Vice President Harris to stop the hemorrhaging of working class voters from our party. And now we are locked out of power. The Republicans have the White House. They've got Congress, both houses of Congress. They have a very friendly Supreme Court. So we're deeply apprehensive about what's going to happen over the next 4 years with Trump unchained, as it were. And I've only been here a day and a half in Brussels, but I sense deep apprehension here in Europe about what could happen, too. You know, as bad as the picture looks for us, it's not quite the realignment that Republicans are claiming. Trump won solidly, but not a landslide. So that means that we're not far from recovery if we do the right things. He won just under half the popular vote, only 1.6 points more than Kamala Harris, and importantly, he's probably the least popular successful presidential candidate in American history. He's already 50% disapproval from the day he starts. He's never been popular, and he remains unpopular, oddly enough. And the fact that we couldn't beat a candidate who is that unpopular really should be troubling to Democrats. So I say that, you know, there is hope. We can win. We can regain our position. But we have to struggle with the core problem, that's winning back working class voters. Many Democrats might be tempted to wait 2 years, to wait 4 years, to not do much, to assume that the American tendency to throw out the incumbents in every election will continue. But that would be a huge mistake for us. We've got to struggle. We've got to wrestle with what I call the new class configuration of American politics. And this is, I think, you know, at the heart of our problems. And I see it in Italy, and I see it in France, and many other countries in Europe. You know, like his populist right counterparts in Europe, Trump is riding a working class revolt against the governing elites that's now spread, as I mentioned, to non-white voters. And so we have to reckon with that fact. Social class, defined by education level, is now the deepest political fault line in American politics. It used to be that race and ethnicity was a very significant fault line, with Democrats doing well with voters of color, but that can no longer be relied upon. So we've got an inversion of the traditional class politics of America, and it's created a kind of a crisis of cognitive dissonance for Democrats. We've historically been the party of the people. But the people are saying, no, we're with this billionaire from New York, if he is really a billionaire. So this is a problem that Democrats have to solve mathematically. 2/3 of the U.S. electorate are people who do not have college degrees, so you cannot build durable governing majorities just with white college graduates and urban professionals and cosmopolitans. It's an impossible job. You have to win the heart of the electorate. And morally, the party of the working people, the party that's historically defined itself as a champion of working people, shouldn't be reflecting they should be reflecting the mainstream values of middle America rather than the luxury beliefs of highly affluent elites. So we think that it's really crucial for Democrats and other center-left parties wrestling with the same challenge to understand that this is the core political challenge, winning these voters back, rebuilding our stake in working middle class. In this, we draw inspiration from the recent election in the UK. Our friend Keir Starmer, we've been doing a lot of work with the Labour Party in Britain, won a signal victory in which they reversed the loss that they had suffered in 2019 under Jeremy Corbyn with these working class voters in the north of England. And they focused with surgical precision on winning these voters back, made their whole campaign about putting labor in the service of working people again. That was Starmer's slogan, and he followed it up with a lot of policy changes. And it worked. They obviously came back and won a solid majority and won back all of those red wall working class constituencies in the North. Democrats can also look to our own experience of transformation under Bill Clinton and the New Democrats, which you've already heard about, so I'm not going to belabor that. But once again, I think the center-left and centrist forces around the transatlantic world should be engaging in a very structured way in a cross-fertilization of ideas, governing philosophies, strategies, and tactics. We've launched at PPI a center-left renewal project to try to facilitate these dialogues, just like we did back in the New Democrat days. And I want to echo something in closing that Yair said about our challenge, and that is center-left parties seem to have gotten into a position where we are defending the status quo at a time when working-class voters are deeply alienated from the way things are, deeply invested in radical change. And so we've got to, to stop this bleeding, we need to have an infusion of new ideas, reformist ideas, modernizing ideas, ideas that seize the future back from these nationalist and populist movements. And lastly, we've learned an important lesson that bears repeating here today from this sad experience in the United States, and that is that it's not enough to harp on the dangers of our nationalist and populist opponents. They are dangerous, and the extreme left is dangerous as well. But it's not enough to say how bad they are. The only way we're going to regain the allegiance of working class voters is to make them a better offer. And that's what we want to be talking with our European friends about for the next 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Time is running out. In 1 minute, what do we have to expect for EU-US relationship with Donald Trump back in the White House?
That's a good question. I've been asked that repeatedly in the last day and a half, and the honest answer is I don't know. Donald Trump is a volatile, changeable, mercurial, strange individual, and I really don't know. My view is that we're going to have a lot of troubles. We're going to have troubles on Ukraine, first of all, because the president has said very emphatically he's going to withdraw support or try to negotiate a deal which would, in effect, award Putin with some large chunk of Ukrainian territory, which I think would be a disaster. There's going to be big fights over tariffs and trade. And so, I think these things are coming. I don't think NATO's in danger. I don't think Donald Trump is going to come over again and say the United States ought to get out of this obsolete, security alliance. I don't think that's in the cards. But it's a good sign to me that he's been calling European leaders and talking to them about the Ukraine situation, talking to them about what they think about that. And so I think I'm hoping that he is going to come over and try to belay some of the fears that I know exist here, and for very good reasons, if all you do is listen to his campaign rhetoric. The good news is that Donald Trump has flexible convictions and can turn on a dime.
Merci à Will Marshall.
Merci Sandro. Thank you, Mr. Marshall. Je pensais en vous